Every now and then a fighter comes along with a decorated background in another discipline, and it creates excitement among those who are in the know. I'm not sure if any of you out there are kickboxing fans, but for those of you who didn't realize, one of the best strikers on the planet is in the UFC, and is just a couple weeks away from making his second appearance in the octagon after a very emphatic win in his first outing. When I first heard Gohkan Saki join the UFC, I was totally caught off guard because I had no idea MMA was in play for him, much less the UFC. And that surprise was followed by total excitement, followed by skepticism. Not in Saki's ability to perform, but just my feelings on how many people would be willing to stand and trade with him. My first thought when I saw the news feed was, nobody's going to stand with him, and I still feel that way. I do feel like in his first few fights, he'll be matched up with someone who's willing to test themselves and take a chance at making a name for themselves, but I'm not sure how many on the UFC roster are willing to do it. I believe that the number of fighters in MMA willing to play the striking game against Gohkan Saki is extremely limited. But I know Henrique da Silva most certainly was willing to stand up with the Dutch kickboxer and throw strikes. Much to the satisfaction of all of our fans, of course. Da Silva deserves a lot of credit for that. Granted, he ended up being on the receiving end of a KO loss, but he did manage to make a good account of himself and give Saki some trouble as well as test his takedown defense. But ultimately, it was the Turkish Tyshan reigning supreme after an absolute firefight. Saki's UFC debut lived up to the high expectation I personally had for it, so it's no wonder he's set to kick off the biggest pay-per-view of the year. This is what has me stoked on UFC 226 because stepping up to fight Saki is another guy who is no stranger to staying on the feet and playing the very dangerous game of striking, Khalil Rountree. A very dangerous striker with some impressive wins on his resume and his highlight reel, and with 67% of his wins coming by knockout, it's nice matchmaking by the promotion. I've yet to see an interview from Rountree, but I have to think he knows what he's getting himself into, and based on his history, he's probably excited about getting this opportunity. A guy as willing as this to step in and take on Gohkan Saki has all the makings for another crazy fight. My first impression of Saki came from Alistair O'Ream's incredible web documentary, The Ream. If you haven't seen it before, I highly recommend going to check it out. The documentary is captivating, incredibly well done. In fact, I got some homework for you all. I actually have the link to this specific video in which I was introduced to Saki in 2010 below. Please do yourself a favor and click on that link and start the video at the 7:25 mark. It was at this time that I learned of Saki and I've been following him ever since. Start the video at that mark and try not to get hyped on him. Then go back and watch some of his kickboxing fights. In that world, he has fought the who's who in that game. I honestly get chills when I think about that clip from the video that I'm recommending you check out. It's from the 7:25 mark and the link below. There's a lot to be excited about for UFC 226. It's unquestionably the biggest card of the year and it's got a lot of big fights, but make sure you give some extra attention to the first fight on the card. Gohkan Saki is must-see TV, and I've got a feeling that this fight is going to kick things off in a big way and set the tone for the rest of the huge evening at International Fight Week.